So,
Oh my goodness.
so they don't have the laptop.
Yeah, why do you guys have?
The reason we don't have the Wi-Fi time is because the laptop home where they call it people leaving their businesses. The baby boomers.
Yeah.
We're not 80%. So they're thinking we'll sell it to people. So we asked you your first name
Adam.
and Laura. We know each other.
Laura,
Like
I
you
know.
we're festival like that. So it's
Laura Shepherd Show.
Oh, I
Welcome to
know.
the Laura Shepherd Show. Happy Sunday. I, for one, am delighted because there's some things that are going to happen here today. The first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to sing this song and Miguel's going to play along. Ready? Something's going to happen and it could be good. Something's going to happen and it could be good. Something's going to happen and it could be good. Something's going to happen like we knew it would. Oh yeah, well things will change and leaves will fall and it will rain. Transforms before your eyes. No time for chasing why me? Why'd that happen to me? Oh, you never know just how life is gonna go. So you jump in your boat and row, row, row. Jump in your boat and row, row, row. Something's gonna happen and it could be good. Something's gonna happen and it could be good. Something's gonna happen and it could be good. Something's gonna happen like we knew. Oh yeah, folks. Good things are gonna happen here on the Laura Shepherd Show today. Thank you so much for supporting the show through Patreon. You can hear us as a podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. That's right, folks. Oh my goodness. You can catch us on Stitcher and iTunes. And, everybody out there in the podcast world, sing along. This is your turn to shine. Something's gonna happen and it could be good. Something's gonna happen and it could be good. Something's gonna happen and it could be good. Something's gonna happen like we knew it would. Oh yeah, you gotta aim high and go for your pie in the sky. Go ahead, trust yourself. Everything will right itself. Oh yeah, well life's a stream, so go ahead now, follow your dreams. Jump in your boat, row, row, row. Jump in your boat, row, row, row. Everybody together, let's go downstream. We can make it as a co-op. Something's gonna make it and it could be good. Something's gonna happen and it could be good. Something's gonna happen and it could be good. Something's gonna happen like we knew it would. I knew it. I knew it. I knew we could do it. I knew we could all get together and do it. Oh, I'm just so pleased to be here on this 5th day of May. We have with us Phil Reasons, and he's going to talk about feeding people and aquaponics and getting things done and attending to the community. And funnily enough, Judith Turner is here, and she's going to talk to us about feeding people and getting people together and doing community. So I'm very excited. We have Tropico Boulevard with us. So we're going to start with some music. Tropico Boulevard, will you please join me on the stage? Oh my goodness. I'm so delighted for you all to be here. We have Audrey. Hello, Audrey. Delighted to see you. Have a sit, Miss Audrey. And we have Alex. Alex, pleasure. Please, Adam. I've been calling you Alex. We have Adam. This is Adam, the first drummer in the show today, and Miguel. How is everyone? Tropico Boulevard. How'd we get the name?
Oh,
Because that's the first thing. I mean, no, the first thing is you have a band. The second thing is with the name.
it's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
It's a street that doesn't exist until we're in anywhere where we're playing. So it's sort of like a state of mind, more than like or any sort of implying.
So like this is Tropico Boulevard.
Yeah, right now
We're
we're on the corner of what is this street? 9th
And Tropico.
9th and Tropico. That's it.
Yeah.
We have our
Shepherd
street
and
sign,
Tropico.
so-
We're actually we're on the corner of Shepherd and Tropico. That's what I think. At this particular intersection here in front of the newsroom. Oh my goodness. Okay, and Adam, have you been a Tropico member from the beginning?
No, not from the beginning. Miguel actually started the band up in New York City before he moved back down here. He and I both kind of moved back to the area around the same time and started jamming again a couple years ago.
Yeah, so you brought the boulevard back to the beach.
And it's a really funny story actually how Audrey got mixed into the band. You want to tell it?
Well, yeah, I kind of just, was it Dan that reached out to me,
Our
our
bass player.
bassist, yeah. And he was just like, hey, so we have this band, you want to come practice with us and see how it goes? And we're looking for somebody like you. And so I show up and they're like, oh, who's this person? Like, he didn't
Without
tell
even
any
telling-
of them. Yeah, and so they're like, okay, well, that was fun, let's do it again. So, kind of just stuck.
Yeah, well, oh my goodness. So generally speaking, sometimes you have a bass player with you. He's not here today, but we don't mind. He's going to enjoy his day. Is there a song that you have picked out that, I know that you were going to play some electric music, but then there was a shoot!
That happens all the time.
I break a string all the time. It's kind of a meme at this point that every time I break a string, like I immediately grab Audrey's guitar.
It's just great because it's also Strat, the same color.
the same
so
color.
it's like, oh,
So it's almost it's like if
Yeah.
you missed it, you pretty much think like, oh, you just keep doing it.
yeah.
I know, and you can do those things so smoothly. You're really very smooth on stage, and I appreciate when you run the open mics at the Blueberry Patch. You're kind and considerate, and do a really good job.
Shout out to the Blueberry Patch.
Shout out to the Blueberry Patch. All right, I'm going to get off the stage and give you all the stage, and if you'll present a song
Thank you.
for the audience. Hello, live audience. Cheer, live audience.
This song is called The Rails, and it's actually going to be released on all streaming platforms pretty soon. So you're going to see us perform a really intimate, nice acoustic version of it.
Yeah. Breaking it down. If you don't mind, then coming close. Take one last breath before the air makes you choke again. And it's ugly, simple, beautiful. 'Cause in your eyes are dials with diodes beaming light way out past the line. Ooh, in my mind. Ooh, that certain kind doesn't shine like it used to, but you know we're getting used to it's the bitter end. Last open road, left at the station. The wild things they play, they love their creation. So many faces, without any patience. Come on and run with me, it's a mistake. Do not try and chase it, taste and confused from your life and space. Give you a song, but a good way to say grace. Don't let you breathe, you shouldn't waste it. choke again. Yeah, makes you choke again. Yeah, makes you choke again. Yeah, makes you choke again. Maybe you need a new indication. Follow the sky instead of the pavement. You don't have to wait for my invitation. Stare at the sun with me, standing awake. Bodies used to give it away. Dance to the music, don't be afraid. Resisting is useless. Something's you it's an illusion.
We've been playing there every other Wednesday for about almost 2 years.
People like it. I mean, they must like it, or they don't send you
Yeah.
back. I know. Good. Good.
And then we're going to be at Orange Blossom Jamboree up in
Excellent.
Grossville.
Yay!
Yes, the first one. We're going to be on the zombie stage.
Yay! The zombie stage.
Yes, Sunday afternoon.
Yay.
Don't miss it.
That's a good spot.
And come check out our campsite because we're going to be doing some jams there
Yeah.
too. Just
You'll see the
fun
sweet
time.
side.
Yeah, we'll have the sign. So Tropical
be-
Boulevard will be present at OB.
We'll be
Yeah.
doing the Laura Shepherd show here, and then I'm leaving town. But,
Oh, no.
anyways, yeah. Thank you all for coming up. We're going to get you back up here towards the end of the show to do a little bit more.
Okay, sounds
Adam, Audrey, Miguel.
Thank you.
You guys
Thank
are
you so
good.
much.
Thank you.
Cool. I tell you, it just gives me like oh my goodness. All right, tell us about your company.
All right, well, I'm Phil Reasons, and I'm the president of Aquasol International. We're a nonprofit organization focused on establishing sustainable food producing systems for communities, whether that's here in Florida or we do a lot of work in developing countries with orphanages and schools and hospitals alike.
Excellent. And you started this?
I did. We started this nonprofit a couple of years ago. I've been doing this type of work for about 10 years. And when the economy crashed back in around 2008, I had a large business, a for-profit business. And honestly, I was so frustrated with that work. I really wanted to be connected with doing something in community and doing something that made an eternal difference. And I felt like making another buck wasn't the way to get there.
Yeah.
So this came out of that.
Okay. Wow. And then, so you came into your nonprofit with 10 years experience building systems.
Actually, I'm a fourth generation farmer. Four generations of background, which honestly I felt like I didn't really know anything about agriculture. Most of what my grandfather taught me, I didn't pay much attention to early on because I was in big ag, and we did things the modern way.
Yeah.
And I realized, along the way that wasn't the way to go for sustainability, and Grandpa had it figured out all along. So his efforts and heritage has certainly laid a foundation for me, and I'm proud to say that I'm a farmer and producing food. I think it's one of the most important jobs available to me.
Next to the trees producing air.
That's it.
Farmers producing
We need
food.
air and food.
Yeah, that's it. Can you describe one of your projects for us?
Yeah, sure. So I'll maybe a couple. I'll do
Okay.
a local project
Yes.
and then a project overseas.
Right, and explain a little bit about what goes on. And
Yeah. So we kind of joke around that it's kind of true that we feel like we're kind of Robin Hoods in this effort where we do local projects and our organization charges for those projects because we realize people in the States have the ability to pay for that service, and then we take those funds and we do projects overseas. Not always are we able to fund it ourselves, but we find people to help with funding those projects.
So you look for funding.
We do. Aggressively, we're looking for funding and trying to partner. We found that there's 5 partners necessary in all of our projects. The first one, which most people wouldn't think of, is the community. And that's the biggest one for us the hardest one for us to locate in the States is to find a community willing to work to grow their own food. Even in local food deserts, we cannot seem to get the community rallied around and excited about working to grow their own food. In foreign countries, it's a lot easier because they're already working to grow their own food.
Yeah.
So typical projects for us statewide would be anything from a school education type system. We've partnered with lots of schools to build demonstration systems there. We did a project at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium, so if you go and visit the wonderful aquarium there, you'll see one of our aquaponic projects right in the middle of their facility. Some of the projects that we've done overseas, like we partnered with a school for the blind in Africa, where most of the students at that school were blind because of dietary restrictions, nutrients that weren't available, creating problems for them. So we designed a food producing system that custom to produce everything that they needed from proteins to produce there. And one of the awesome things that came out of that project was the director of that program contacted me a year after the farm was up and running, which was about 6 years ago now. And she told me, she said, Phil, I have to tell you the story. She said, we keep a log of all of our students that have to go to the clinic or are required to go to the hospital for illness. And she said, this first quarter, we realized our logbook was empty. And at first, yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
She said, at first we thought it was a mistake.
An error!
And somebody wasn't doing their job, but then we realized we hadn't taken any students to the clinic, no students to the hospital for illness, and she said the only thing that we were doing different at this point was their food. And so that's why I get up every day.
Yeah. Yay! It's so wonderful.
It's a passion to make a difference.
Yeah.
We believe that God's creation, that God's provision is here on the earth, and that men, women, and children suffer, whether it's in our community or in others, needlessly because they don't know how to benefit from what's already provided. So my role is to help them identify how to benefit from what's already there. That's what we do.
I know, and we were talking before, and so we have a system, aquaponics, where plants are growing in water,
Right.
with fish that are, you can eat the fish, and the fish fertilize the aquaponics, which is slightly different from hydroponics, where there's no fish involved. And then you were saying that you were also using some of this fish water nitrogen to water crops on land.
That's correct. So we call it integrated aquaculture. And one of the things that we found is absolutely needed in most of the places we work, whether that's Florida or elsewhere, is a good fertilizer source. And a lot of us understand that most fertilizers that are available today don't come from a very sustainable source. So if we can introduce a protein, because that's the second thing that we've identified that's lacking in a lot of these communities, is they don't have a good protein source. Proteins are expensive. Proteins are hard to
Co-ops,
develop.
we need community cooperation.
We do. We need all of those things.
proteins.
So if we can create a protein source that provides a fertilizer source, we've solved two problems with one solution. And that's what we're trying to do. So we did a project in Santa Rosa de Copan in Honduras, where we had this orphanage. There was literally water flowing off the top of the mountain and just running all the way down. So the whole orphanage was muddy because water was just running off the top of this.
Problem number one.
Problem
get
number
the
one
mud
that we
out
could
of-
solve. So we collected this water and put it into a pipe, and it just free flowed down the mountain. We ran it through an aquaculture setup, so where they're raising fish there now. And then the wastewater stream flowed right out of those tanks, right down through all their gardens, and fertilized and irrigated all the gardens. So, and it was all already there. Somebody just needed to show them how to benefit from what could be provided.
No, I was like, that seems to me a type of project somebody could invest in. So if you're wishing you were feeding people, get in touch.
Yeah, we love it.
And so tell me some funny, fabulous tidbit. Give me a nugget of something interesting.
Okay, so aquaponics, it's becoming better known, and there's a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of information out there about aquaponics. And here's a little tidbit. Most people think that aquaponics is utilizing fish poop to grow plants,
That's what I thought.
right? And there is a little bit of truth in that, but the reality is most of the nutrient or the nitrogen that's formed comes from the urine that the fish excrete, not their fish waste. So it's technically
Okay.
not the poop, It's the
the
pea
pea.
that's so important. in
Yes,
aquaponics.
well, you know, you go pee on your banana plant, pee on your
works.
citrus. That's
Once or twice a year.
That's right. No, you gotta do it regularly. You know, like, that's what feeds them. Oh my goodness. And why or how do you get people to give you money? Like, what do you?
So yeah, that's a great question, Laura. So we have been doing this long enough that we have kind of created a template for developing these projects, specifically in developing nations. So if you go to our website, there's a free download in the resource page. And so someone can download that. It's a worksheet, and we ask for all this information about their organization, about their needs, and then we design a system to meet their needs and create a budget, what it's going to actually physically cost to get people there, to build the system, to operate that system. And once that's all put together, then we start reaching out to people saying, here's the need, here's the organization that's doing such a wonderful job reaching people in their community. They're lacking in protein and produce, and therefore this is what's happening. We have a solution to that need, and here's what it costs. Now the beauty of this is so many organizations, especially abroad, rely on constant support. They need that support every month to feed those children, to meet that need. The beauty of our projects, it's a one and done. We build the project that produces the food. That system will continue to produce food for years and years to come. It's a single investment. So
Yay, I like that. Now, you can, let's say, if I just live here and I have my own little apartment, I want my own little aquaponics just for me in my cute little apartment, can I call you up and pay you to do that for me?
absolutely.
So
absolutely.
you could do something as basic as feed one person in their apartment
Yep.
to feeding an orphanage full of people, and that's a lot of power.
We have pre-designed systems that work well here in Florida specifically that we call a backyard system. It works great for a single person or a small family of 4. It has a very small footprint, a tiny little greenhouse, and we can show you how to raise your own fish, grow your own produce in a sustainable system right in your own backyard.
Like right there, right in
Right
that
there.
corner.
You need one right here,
I need
Laura.
one right here. We'll get on that. Thank you so much. I
Sure,
really
appreciate it.
appreciate your taking time
Thank
out of
you.
your life to run a nonprofit. And it's like it just warms my heart. Like, you know, every time on the show we have people come up here that do the most amazing things. And it gives me goosebumps to know I'm surrounded by greatness every Sunday on the show.
All right, thank you.
So much. Sit here. You know, sit right here. Now.
Don't make me sing.
No, I want to make a statement. Phil wanted to offer you, your band, a 1 hour consultation. Now you all have to get together amongst yourselves and decide who is interested in this. I suppose they could give it to a friend.
Sure.
So after the show, this is a gift that for your time for coming to sing. And Phil, before you leave, I want to give you, this is my CD and this is my gift to you. So, yay, thank you, yay. All right, it just didn't feel right. Like you got up every morning and everything was going on just like usual, but it wasn't right. And I think that one of the most important things in life is actually making decisions, making a call, making something happen. And so this song is about choices. It's called Move the Moon. And yes, every choice you make moves the moon. What a beautiful breezy day. Thank the Lord for this beautiful breezy weather out here. Woke up this morning in bed next to you. Woke up this morning to a new day. Woke up this morning with something to say. Last night you came in from a cold rain. But seeing you wet, well, it caused me no pain. That's how I know. That's how I know. Well, that's how I know to let you go. What if I say I'm leaving you? What if I say you're free to go? What if I told you what you already know? First time I saw you, it took me to the moon. But now when I see you, I don't cross the room. That's how I know, that's how I know, well, that's how I know I'll let you go. What if I say I'm leaving you? What if I say you're free to go? What if I told you what you already know? Oh, because you do know. The question is, when are you going to admit it? Would it change the way the wind blows? Would it change the sky tonight? Will it move that moon so bright? Will it move the moon so bright? Hello, Judith.
Hello, Laura.
Judith is a member of the Time Bank. That's where we first met, at a Time Bank
Yes,
potluck,
it is.
right? Yeah, that's where we first met. And but you are the president
Yes.
of SEED, Madame President of SEED. That's CEED.
Which stands for Florida Cooperative Empowered Economic Development, which is a mouthful, so we call it Florida Seed.
Florida SEED. Now, cooperative empowerment.
Yes.
What is cooperative empowerment?
It's kind of like what you just described. Learning how to get along is a big part of it, but actually cooperatives are businesses. Most people think they're shared kitchens or some kind of underground Stalinist economy being run out of their neighbor's garden, but in fact they're 20% of the world economy. Cooperatives are businesses. So what we do is we help people form cooperatively owned businesses. So
Now, like what kind of people? Like Adam over there, if he wants to start a co-op drum company. Okay, so
So
what?
co-ops basically are businesses, but the only difference really that I've boiled it down to, it's how you write your bylaws, which is how you make decisions together as groups, and how you issue your stock, and which is your ownership, and how you do your accounting and distribute your profits. Other than that, they're just businesses,
They're just businesses. And so the first thing you mentioned,
which is
the co-op, how you make your rules,
which
and
is
your
through your
bylaws.
bylaws. So this is something we help a lot of people form. How do you want to make decisions? It usually requires going to the beach with a bottle of wine, spending a lot of hours hammering out how you want things done. So for example, well, if you need to make a decision, what does it have to be? Unanimous? Does it have to be 51% of the members? Does it have to be 75% of the members? So you decide what percentage of the vote is going to make a decision. It's going to be, how do we invite new members into our co-op? Is there a waiting period? You know, I own a business. I'm a licensed building contractor. And I've had great people come in, and at 6 months, they just go crazy. So I think, well, you have to have a waiting period to make sure it's a good fit. You know, so if you bring a new person into your
the
band,
yeah.
you don't want to just say, hey, join our co-op right away. You want to make sure that they fit in, because it's like a marriage. You're going to be in business with that person. You're going to give them a part of ownership. So you decide what your waiting period is. It might be 2 months, it might be 2 years. And then you have to determine the value of the buy-in, etc. So those are the kinds of transactional things that we help with.
And does it, do you have any sense whether it's better to be 51% takes it, or 100%, or 75, or do you think it just doesn't matter?
To me, I am, having been a building contractor all of my adult career, I tend to be very directive and very decisive, but in this venue, I really like to defer to the wisdom of the group. And I think always people should make their own decisions. We can come up with other models. Perhaps we could find other bands that have formed cooperatives and use that as a recommendation, but I always think that the group knows best what's best for them.
Yeah, I like the idea of consensus. You know, democracy is all great, except you got 4 out of 10 people mad. And they don't, you know, and they don't like what you're doing. And if you can get everybody to agree to move forward, not agree necessarily think it's the greatest thing in the whole wide world, but to agree not to oppose you. Because then you're not coming back every week with those 4 people going, no, no, no. You know, I like this whole consensus thing. Now, you said that you were a contractor.
I still am.
You still
a
are.
licensed building contractor with my own firm, E-Construction.
E-Construction Group. What got you into contracting?
Oh, well, I got an art degree and I couldn't type, and this was back, you know, a couple of decades
But
ago.
you could build a house.
But, so I just picked up a hammer.
Where'd you get an art degree from?
University of Colorado at Colorado Springs, and I moved to New York City to become rich and famous, you know, which is what artists do, right? And it turns out where all the waiters and waitresses are actors and actresses, well, all the art majors became carpenters and contractors.
Contractors.
And they just seemed to be a good
I went to
fit.
art school at Mary Washington College. I came to Florida to the Laura Shepherd Show to be rich and famous. That's what I did. Can you tell me what made you go from being a contractor to running a nonprofit?
I think that it was always difficult being a woman trapped in a man's job. The doors were never open, and I always had to build my own door. And I had to
That's why
really-
you're a good carpenter now.
Yes. I had to kind of decode a lot and wear many hats in my business. And I had always been interested in cooperatives, but finding information on the transactional aspects of how cooperatives are run, it's like, how do you do that? I know how to run a business. In fact, I'm an award-winning contractor.
Yay! Wait, what award? Wait, what award did you win?
We won Fast 50 in 2013.
What's Fast 50?
It is the fastest growing companies in the Tampa Bay area. We beat 600 companies. We were not only, so that it's percentage of growth over 3 years. So we were not only, the number 2 company grew at 802%, and we grew at 1,736% in 3 years. I did it with 6 females that knew nothing about construction. And we killed it. In the middle of the recession, in the hardest hit industry in the country, in the hardest hit area in the country. So it was quite an achievement.
And
you
so
know.
what skills do you think you and these 6 women brought together to make such a thing? I assume you could have done anything.
I think that's where I began to get that it's really about process, and we all contributed to that success. And I thought, well, how can I share that success? How can I get them to buy into this the same way I buy into it? And it just seemed sometimes like if I took a day off, people weren't really invested the way I was. And I thought, well, how do you get people really invested in business? And I knew about co-ops, but I didn't quite understand the transactional aspect. So I looked and looked on Google. I spent 8 months educating myself. I came up with like a 30-minute presentation. And it was so hard to find this information. I'm a very sharp tack in the box. And I thought, it can't be this difficult. So I found a training. And they had a cooperative developer training, business developer training, and they showed us a 40-minute video, which was everything it took me 8 months to learn. And I just thought, you know, I could have saved a lot of time if someone had just shown me this 40-minute video. I would have, it's everything I discovered on my own. So I thought, if you could just deliver this information to people quickly, it's a no-brainer. So I started petitioning the Greenhouse, the St. Peter's Country Greenhouse, which is the Business Assistance Center, which has helped me tremendously in my growth as a business entrepreneur, and said, please teach classes in this. I'm tired of sitting up all night teaching myself. And eventually they said, okay. And I thought, well, I'm the only one who really understands it at this point. So I stepped in and I've been teaching it for over a year. Once a month we teach a class on cooperatives.
And where do you teach it?
At the St. Pete Greenhouse.
And how does one, if one wants to?
Just go to the St. Pete Greenhouse, look on their class schedule. All the classes are free. They have amazing topics. How to run a nonprofit, how to write a business plan, business structures. So I teach Introduction to the Cooperative Business Model. I teach housing co-ops or corporations too. I introduced the limited equity housing co-op model, which would definitely create affordable housing. I teach, we just did one on youth co-ops and steps to starting a grocery co-op. So different topics to keep it interesting, and we mix it up.
And can you give me some good tips for cooperative decision making?
Relationships are hard. That's probably, if you ask me what is the hardest part of co-ops, it's decision making and relationships.
Right, so
I'm a lot stronger in the stock, but my advice is leave your ego at the door, otherwise Walmart wins. You have to learn to get along, at least to the point, and put the success of the business ahead of your own ego. Because I've seen it too many times. I helped form a grocery co-op. There was a lot of tension initially, but I just keep saying, if we don't put our egos at the door and get down to business, Walmart wins, and we're not going to win. So we have to really stop putting our own needs ahead of the greater good of our needs as a group.
And do you feel like, how often do you feel like a business needs, or a group needs to meet?
You mean as
Like if you have a housing co-op, is it enough to meet once a
month,
year or once a month?
And as you need it, so our grocery co-op that we've been developing, we've met weekly because it was needed, and now it's every 2 weeks, and soon it might just be once a month.
Once you get
Once a
everything
month.
going and,
Yes.
wow. And can you tell us about some project that Seed is working
Oh,
on?
we're working on so many projects. So one, I have to give a lot of credit to, it was the People's Budget Review, which became the New Deal for St. Pete. They did a lot of surveying in South St. Petersburg. In case you're not aware, there are no grocery stores there. I live there. It takes a half an hour to find a sandwich. And for years, there's been, big box closures, leaving, and people have been going to the city going, give us a co-op, give us a food store. And I'm like, but we're the co-op. So they didn't understand the transactional aspects of building a grocery co-op. So that's where Seed came in. We helped them get them on track. Now we have a very good leader. They're developing, and we're building the grocery co-op. The next big project we're working on, very exciting, is Enoch Davis Center in St. Petersburg is starting a youth farm. And we have been brought in to help the kids form a youth co-op. So it will be a worker-owned cooperative. We're going to form a business. We're going to give them 2 months of intensive training. And
Do
then
you know what the business is yet?
it's deciding whether growing food, for sure.
They're growing food.
Yes, but they
Okay,
have to
well,
decide.
these people have agreed the community wants to grow some food.
So a youth co-op is different in the sense that they're usually provided space by a church, a school, a community center, so they're given the space. And at some point they age out, so this age group is 14 to 24. However, we have so much interest from 10-year-olds, we're like, we'll take them. They can be volunteers, but we're going to give them the same business training. And at the end of that training, we'll form a business that they will then own and run. So that practical application of learning sinks in so much better because it's your business. You
Right.
start thinking, oh, I really do want to learn how to use QuickBooks. I want to learn how to manage my customers. How many heads of lettuce do I have? Because it's your business and you care. It gives you that investment. So we're working on the youth co-op starting next month. And we have also been working with the Florida Herbal Growers Co-op, which is located right here in Gulfport. We've been working with the MGC Moringa's Growers Co-op, which is associated with Newman Nursery. So they have a great business. They just needed to get their bylaws a little bit in order and get their shares of stock out. So I was one of their first members.
Yay.
And I'm also working with a group of African refugees who have been taking sewing classes for 2 years, and they started to decide they wanted to do some kind of business. So I talked to them, which was translated into Swahili, and explained to them what a cooperative business is, and they all unanimously voted to do that. So they'll all own the business, and they're going to come up with maybe 6 products like headbands or backpacks and sell their wares, but they're going to be organized as a cooperative.
Yeah, it's so nice to know that if anybody wanted to have a cooperative, that there are these templates
Absolutely.
that people can go on.
And I belong to a national developers network, so if you decide you want to open a brewery, bookstore, a bakery, I guarantee you I can find a template for it. And we help each other. Cooperatives are businesses, but they're value-driven businesses. We have 7 principles we adhere to. They've been around almost 200 years, and what we've learned is if you adhere to those principles, that co-ops succeed.
Can you rattle those off?
One is they must be voluntary. One is you must have economic participation, so there has to be a buy-in, whether it be $1 or $20,000. There has to be democratic, one member, one vote. So in a traditional company, if I buy 80% of the stock and you all own the other 20%, my vote carries 80% of the weight. In a co-op, that cannot happen. So investors struggle to work with co-ops because they usually want a certain amount of control. But it's one member, one vote. So the next one is, the principle 6 is cooperation among co-ops. So if you're a co-op, you want to bank at a credit union because they're co-ops, you always support other cooperatives. And this actually drives the success rate of co-ops up tremendously. So for example, there's a payroll company in California that's a worker-owned. You might want to take your payroll business to them instead of maybe the company down the street. You always look to support a co-op if you can. The concern for the community is the 7th principle. It is one of the more important. So co-ops typically they might set aside a percentage of their profits and give it to the members and say, do what you like with it, donate to a local charity, or any decision they make has to benefit. It can't be harmful to the community, because imagine, most businesses are owned by distant shareholders. They don't care if they dump in your backyard. They don't care if they extract your resources. But co-ops are owned by the people who work or use the service. So if you're a worker-owned cooperative, you have to work there. And if you work there and you own that business, it's your backyard you're talking about. That's why cooperatives are much better, treat their communities much better, because you don't want to extract resources.
Oh, right. You bought a share in the.
No, I mean, like, I just like volunteered for a while, but that's it. No business training whatsoever.
Bank at a credit union.
Why did you choose to bank at a credit union?
Because, I don't like the idea of all these like extra fees that like some of the bigger banks charge you. Like you have to have like a certain minimum balance at all times, or else you get penalized for that. And that was just something that annoyed me, and just seemed like a better direction to go for being an artist and somebody that's working their way up into the economic system.
Yeah. Do you have another song? What song are you going to play for us?
This one is written by Audrey, actually.
Yes.
Oh,
I
Audrey
met
wrote
someone.
it.
Yes.
Yay, okay.
She wrote the last one too.
Oh, she wrote the last one too?
Me and Dan together.
Yeah.
Dan is a crucial part of the songwriting aspect.
We all, that's one thing that I really like. We all are very democratic about our songs and like how we move forward on them.
Yep. Definitely a co-op in that sense, right?
What's this song called?
It's called Rocks Fall.
I can't fit this life in my pocket. I don't play on the radio. I don't rub nose at high fashion shows. I don't wear a watch. I can't afford any gold. But it's just a joke, so no, at least it is to me. 'Cause there's some things you just can't buy, and some that you get for free. Life ain't easy, but it's quite a ride. Your friends will pass by, so stay behind. Say I love you and wave goodbye. The odds are never fair, and the cards are unforeseen. Could be up, then out of luck. The king throws you in chains, and the joker runs off with your queen. I drink romance whiskey. I wear secondhand smoke. If you're familiar with the hustle, then you're in on the joke. Life ain't easy, but it's quite a ride. Your friends will pass by, so stay behind. Say I love you and wave goodbye. Life ain't easy, but it's quite a ride. Your friends will pass by, so stay behind. Just say I love you and wave goodbye. I drink poor man's whiskey. I wear secondhand smoke.
Alright, that was great. I love that line. I wear secondhand smoke. Alright, I'm Laura Shepard. This has been the Laura Shepard Show. Please go to patreon.com and support the show. Look up these fine folks. See you in a couple of weeks when we have another great show planned. Yay! Bye. Oh, thank you.